And then tell me a little bit about the evolution of Parrott Creek.
Okay, well, the evolution of Parrott Creek, I love its origin story. It started out of some of the civic leadership in Clackamas County at the juvenile department and the county commission and some other sort of community leaders. They wanted, back in 1968, they wanted a local alternative program to prevent youth who had been adjudicated and sent to McLaren, and they wanted a local program, more of a kind of residential program that they could go to. So they didn't have the funding. They put a measure on the ballot, and the Clackamas County voters approved it in 1968. The county used those proceeds to buy 80 acres of land, and then Parrott Creek was set up as an independent nonprofit to run the residential services. And that's how we were founded, and we have continued providing residential care and treatment to youth ever since then. And of course, we've expanded. We have a number of other programs in the community as well.
How many other programs like this are there throughout Oregon? Do you know?
Good question. I mean, it depends what you mean by like this. I think there must be probably about a dozen, but OIA obviously could tell you more. I think there's probably about a dozen residential programs where youth are living in a more congregate setting. And then there's probably the same amount as well that are in the proctor and foster care. So youth who have been adjudicated, who are in a, quote, residential setting, but that's in a home-based setting, as opposed to Parrott Creek and J-Bar J and programs like Looking Glass down in Eugene. They have programs, and it's a residential program where multiple youth are living in sort of one facility. Yeah.
What is unique about Parrott Creek?
What is unique about Parrott Creek? I would say lots of things. We are very grounded in our values on how we approach and work with our youth. Those values are unconditional positive regard, mindfulness, being trauma-informed, restorative justice, very much the practice of youth taking accountability for the harm they've caused and their behaviors, but also that being restored back into the community, and social justice about sort of healing our communities in that wider sense. And I guess the uniqueness, our campus is extremely unique, and we've just invested $30 million in a brand new, beautiful trauma-informed campus. But we center, and I know a lot of us a lot of my peers, and we all do this, but I think Parrott Creek really is at the forefront of centering the needs of the youth that we serve, and similarly in the community, the needs of the clients, the adults and the families we serve, and really doing everything to meet those needs, as opposed to sometimes saying, we can't help you there because that's not within our remit or the contract doesn't allow.
Why is Parrott Creek so different in look from a lot of other facilities that I've seen? I mean, you guys have a very nature focused and different environment within the dorms and stuff like that. Why is that?
Why is that? I mean, first of all, we are fortunate to benefit from having that 80-acre property. It's beautiful, predominantly forest, wetlands and creek. Why is it different? Because we just invested $30 million in building a modern, trauma-informed, kind of state-of-the-art facility, because we believe that the facilities, the buildings, the furniture, the fabrics, the bedrooms, they are as much part of healing a youth from their histories, helping them change their behaviors. The facility is as much a part of that as the treatment, the staff, the programming that you do with them. And so we invested an awful lot of money, and the state helped us, federal government, and lots of donors helped us get there.
What's the message you're sending with a facility like that to the youth? They come there. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The message we're sending to the youth is that you're valued and you're important, and that you merit being in a facility that's going to nurture you. And in return, though, is when you go forward into the community, you should be nurturing the same in our communities. And, so we value them. We say, come to this space. It'll be supportive and healing, but we also expect that to kind of raise your own aspirations. We set high expectations of them, and we want them to walk out the front door, as it were, metaphorically, with those same high expectations of themselves.
You know what's hard is like looking at OYA and looking at you guys. It's hard to say what the success rate is because do you guys get to see any of that? Do you get to see any numbers of what happens after?
We don't get a lot. I think that's a real problem in the system, as it were, is tracking sort of not just recidivism. That's a very kind of blunt black and white tool. Did this young person or adult, have they gone on to commit another crime? It's very binary. We should be better at tracking, other successful outcomes. Has this youth left Parrott Creek or left OYA? Have they graduated from high school? Have they gone on to college? Have we been able to track, their kind of educational opportunities? So it's hard to track. Parrott Creek doesn't have that wherewithal, and some of our contracts don't allow us to remain in touch with youth when they leave us. We haven't had it updated from OYA in about 5 years, so it's kind of old. But our last recidivism rate that we received from OYA was that 88% of our youth did not reoffend based on their data, which was about twice as good as the statewide average for youth kind of leaving the OYA system. Or another way of saying it, about 12% of our youth from that data point would reoffend, and the statewide average is about 24%. That is 5 years old, so don't put too much stock on that.
What anecdotally are you hearing from the kids that come to you guys and their parents too? Yeah,
I mean, anecdotally, we will have kids, or then they're usually young adults at that point, and they will drive down our driveway. We're a little bit off the beaten track, and we frequently get somebody knocking on the front door, coming into our reception saying, I was a youth here 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Is X still working here? And half the time not, but sometimes they still are. They really helped change my life. I've got a job, I'm married, I have my family. That's all in my past, and I'm now building a future. And there was something you did with me that changed my path, and I'm thankful and grateful for that.
Have you got to be on the receiving end of any of those conversations?
Sadly I haven't, not directly. I've heard of them, and some of those individuals I've met later. But I'm the executive director. I don't do a lot of the hands-on work with the
Sure.
youth. They see me as the boss's boss. So they're asking me for favors, but no, we have a good time though.
And then when it comes to the new introduction of a different subset of that population that you guys will now be taking in, the DHS referrals, can you talk a little bit about that, when that will start and what that will look like?
Yeah, so we've expanded our campus from about 20 beds to 40, and we're tripling our service array so that we'll have 3 very distinct programs. We're continuing having our residential program for adjudicated youth, sort of coming through the juvenile justice system. We are opening, we're kind of opening them almost at the same time in sort of October, November, what's called a co-occurring treatment program for youth struggling with substance misuse or substance use disorder and mental health issues. And also we're opening up a 3rd program, which is for youth with very challenging behaviors in the foster care system. The youth that DHS currently is often placing in hotels and motels, youth with behaviors based from their traumas, where they're very difficult to place in a family environment.
What kind of preparations are you undergoing for that subset there?
For both of those, some preparations is hiring some highly trained, drug and alcohol counselors, particularly for obviously that sort of substance use mental health program. We already have mental health therapists, so just sort of integrating those teams together. And then for the youth who are coming to us through the foster care system, again, is finding some very skilled therapists. Some of those youth have sexually challenging, sexually inappropriate behaviors. So also, building a staffing cohort that can work with some of those challenges, and they're very socially difficult behaviors to work with. They're highly treatable, but you really need to have staff who are, willing to work with a youth on some of that.
Are they in the same living units?
Our 3 programs have separate living units, or residence halls as we call them. During the daytime, we have an on-site school with 2 classrooms, so the youth will be kind of commingled in a it's not a normal classroom, but in the sense of a normal school day in that part. But they're kind of living, their recreation, their downtime will be mostly in their individual program cohorts. And so some of their recreational stuff might be together, playing sports, but they will kind of live separately, yes.
The co-occurring unit, is that still OA referrals?
Those will be referrals really in any which way. We could have a family whose child is struggling in high school and maybe they've overdosed and they're looking for some sort of pretty intensive treatment, so a family could phone us. They could come through the juvenile system, they could come through the behavioral health care system, they could even come through the foster care system if their needs are around drug and alcohol treatment and mental health. That would be the most appropriate treatment program for them, as opposed to entering into the juvenile justice system or into foster care.
So trying to catch it before it happens.
Yeah.
And then is there a concern at all with commingling of these different populations? I mean, there could be some kids that have never committed any offense, and then you're with kids who maybe have committed some serious offenses, and is that a problem?
Ultimately, no, it's not. We don't believe it's a problem of commingling. Our view is kids are kids. These are teenagers. The youth who are coming to us have all had traumas in their lives, and a lot of the underlying trauma is what's then triggered some into antisocial behaviors, as in that's criminal. Some that it's triggered them into having addiction issues and or mental health challenges, and or traumas that have abuse and neglect of a child that's had them removed from the care of their family. So generally, no, we don't have a problem with the commingling. We separate the youth in their sort of resident program cohorts, and that's more that different kids will be in sort of different treatment programs, and so you want youth that are having similar sort of experiences while they're with Parrott Creek, so that in the evenings they might be talking about it, or the staff who are supporting them are kind of working with that group more specifically and distinctly. And yes, overall, kids are kids, these are teenagers, and there will be areas and times when we don't want negative influences in one way or another. So while overall we believe these are all just teenagers with challenges and traumas and different treatment needs, there are times when we don't want different influences happening as well.
How do you prevent that from happening in a unit that's for all those populations, so that co-occurring? Come back and visit us in 6 months when we've got that program up and running, and then we will really know. But I think it'll just come down to, the skill set of the staff, and a lot of our work, and it really doesn't matter what program a youth is in, is focusing the youth on why they're there, what do they want to get out of their time with us, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, really supporting them on focusing on building their skills and what's their journey and what does success look like for them. And a lot of redirecting. If our staff are always around with the kids, listening to their conversations, and if we see and perceive the youth are influencing each other or something, is to redirect that. Same as you would in a school, teachers redirect pupils all the time. We just do that in a much more intense way. I guess if you were to talk to someone, the concern might be that kids coming in there who have done nothing wrong think that they are now being stereotyped as somebody who's done something wrong because they have trauma.
So I think that goes back to why we built a beautiful facility that we did, and an amazing youth, child-focused, or child-centered campus, is that every kid comes there, doesn't matter what journey led them to the door, what door they walked through to be there, they feel that this is a wholesome and nurturing place to be, and it hopefully kind of minimizes and pushes out of their minds a lot more, why Fred is here or Johnny is here and things like that, is we are all here to grow, to heal, and to set ourselves up for success.
You guys don't only take boys, right?
Yes, at our campus currently it's all male identifying. we work with girls and young women in the community in some of our other programs. And then just currently how the campus is set up and the sort of program design is to be single sex.
But you do have other programs throughout the community that are for girls as well? We
do. We have some recovery homes for young mums who have lost custody of their children due to their addiction issues, and we have a kind of reunification housing program. We provide outpatient drug and alcohol treatment, mental health treatment to both girls and boys, young adults, and then we have a small homeless housing program for 18 to 24-year-olds pregnant or parenting. What's
the common thread in all these populations?
The common thread is back to trauma, the common thread is adverse childhood experiences. I don't know if you've heard that term, if your audience has, that is, a child who's grown up in poverty, a child who's grown up with a parent who may have been incarcerated, a child growing up in a household that's struggling with addiction in the household, violence in the household, a child who's seen a parent or a loved person or a sibling, die or be killed. Those adverse childhood experiences underlie really all of the kind of drivers and the commonalities of the kids that come to us. And in fact, across all of our programs, I would say, adults as well.
How often do you hear stories where the issue that brought them there could have been prevented had it been addressed in community?
I would say, I don't mean to laugh, I think, I don't want to put a percentage, but almost all the time, if our society, if the community had intervened earlier on at the right time, provided the right support or treatment for the child or the teenager, or possibly for the family and the adult that was causing harm in that household, I would say most of the time that would have prevented a youth ending up at Parrott Creek's front door.
Are there personality disorders that are so severe that this kind of facility would not work for?
I am not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but I would think yes. I can't diagnose people, but I think a young person struggling with some sort of psychopathy, some sort of personality disorder. We're not a psychiatric treatment program, and we are a treatment program, but we don't provide that sort of very high level of care that is more at the kind of quote state hospital type level. So they wouldn't be appropriate to come to us. Yeah.
What is one of the most common misconceptions that you hear people bring up when you talk about where you work and what you guys do?
One of the biggest misconceptions, I would say, is they say that must be really hard work. And it is really hard work. And my staff who work with the kids 24/7, it is very, very hard and challenging. It's also really rewarding, to see those changes in a kid, who comes to you, kind of very shut down and very angry and very aggressive, and all of the above, and seeing the change and having them leave where they came in the front door believing that their lives would kind of go nowhere, and they couldn't foresee a different future for themselves. And when they leave, they're saying, I want to finish my GED, or I want to get my high school diploma, I want to go to college, and and are already talking about their sort of jobs and employment aspirations.
What is one of the biggest misconceptions about kids who come to you?
I think a big misconception is that kids can't change, and most kids can. Again, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I can't kind of diagnose, young people that have some very challenging types of disorders. But the majority of youth, with the right type of support, with the right type of treatment, particularly around drug and alcohol use and mental health issues, and then connecting them with the right opportunities in the community, they can and they should be successful contributing adults later in life.
Anything else you want people to know about your programs or the work that the legislature has done to increase funding there?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Parrott Creek has been incredibly fortunate from the state of Oregon supporting the construction of our campus. I would really like people to know in Oregon that this is a unique, we have built a very unique facility in Oregon, probably first of its kind here, probably sector leading even across the nation. And so first and foremost, I'd like Oregonians to be proud of what the state and taxpayers have helped create here. And I really want people to see this as, this is the model that we should really raise our aspirations for kids. Our belief is if you aim high, the kids will rise up to that, and then we have to support them in getting to that. So we got to believe that this is all possible, because our youth are our future.